Done.
Well, good morning, everybody. Well, this morning we're going to be in 1 Samuel chapter 20.
You're not in it, darn.
So, 1 Samuel chapter 20. We finished 19 last week. We're on 20 this week. And hope you guys had a great week. We went out and did some stuff last night with the grandkids and some of the children, our children, and we had a wonderfully blessed night. So 1 Samuel chapter 20, you guys turn in that, and then when we get there, we'll start. We're running a little bit behind this morning, but we had a lot of good stuff that we had to cover, so start reading there in 1 Samuel chapter 20, verse 1. It says, Then David fled from Noah in Ramah and went and said to Jonathan, What have I done? What is my iniquity and what is my sin before your father that he seeks my life? So Jonathan said to him, By no means you shall not die. Indeed, my father will do nothing, either great or small, without first telling me. And why should my father hide this thing from me? Is it not so? Then David took an oath again and said, Your father certainly knows that I have found favor in your eyes, and he has said, Do not let Jonathan know this, lest he be grieved. But truly, as the Lord lives, and as your soul lives, there is but a step between me and death. So Jonathan said to David, Whatever yourself desires, I will do it for you. And David said to Jonathan, Indeed, tomorrow is the new moon, and I should not fail to sit with the king to eat. But let me go, that I may hide in the field until the third day at evening. If your father misses me at all, then say, David earnestly asked permission of me that he might run over to Bethlehem, his city, for there is a yearly sacrifice there for all the family. If he says thus, It is well, your servant will be safe. But if he is very angry, be sure that evil is determined by him. Therefore you shall deal kindly with your servant, for you have brought your servant into a covenant of the Lord with you. Nevertheless, if there is iniquity in me, kill me yourself, for why should you bring me to your father? But Jonathan said, Far be it from you, for if I knew certainly that evil was determined by my father to come upon you, then would I not tell you. Then David said to Jonathan, Who will tell me, or what if your father answers you roughly? Okay, I'm going to stop right there for a minute. Okay, so what do we see happening here, you guys? So,
he's fleeing from death, probably.
yeah, well, at the very end of 19, we remember that, Saul tried to pin David up against the wall again by throwing a spear at him, right? So here, Jonathan and David have gotten together and talked, and David is fearful for his life, and has a right to be that way. But he is talking to Jonathan, and Jonathan was saying, what?
Fear not.
Fear not, don't worry about it. If anything was going to happen to you, I would know about it, and my father would tell me, right? Mm-hmm. Okay, so how do you think Jonathan feels right now? Jonathan, it says in the previous chapters that Jonathan and David love each other, like their own selves, right? Like brothers, right? So, what do you think Jonathan's going through?
Well, he's probably a little afraid for David, but he's trusting in the Lord.
Absolutely.
Back and forth. At the same time, he tells him don't fear. He has a calm side to it, but he has a side where, like what you said, there's two sides to everything on both that type of thing, and multiple times like that.
Go ahead, Mary. Excuse me. So Jonathan says, although Jonathan expresses his certainty that Saul was not seeking David's life, he may have been unaware of the most recent attempts on David's life. From what I was saying in previous chapters of 19, you know, where David was playing the harp, you know, the harp for Saul, and then Saul, the evil spirit came upon Saul again, and then Saul tried to pin David up against the wall one last time. And it's saying here that Jonathan might not have known about that, you know, that time.
Yeah.
And was trying in his father's oath not to harm David. Jonathan expected to be informed by Saul of any change in his plans. So basically what it's saying here is that Jonathan is telling David, hey, you know, calm down. It's going to be all right. My father's not going to do anything to you. You know, you haven't done anything to my father. My father's not going to do anything to you, because if he would have had this in his heart and his mind, he probably would have told me. But don't you think that would have, you think that would have put David at ease? Or do you think that still would have had him with his guard up?
One thing he mentions in here is he asked for a sign at the dinner table as to which way Saul will come out.
Yeah, on what?
How he would react.
How he would react, or whether or not he would harm him, or whether or not he'd treat him.
Exactly right. He would ask where he was, or how, you know, in that case.
Right. Okay. So here we see in the next few verses that David is going to set forth a plan to find out whether or not what Saul's intentions are going to be. Okay. So we'll continue to read there on verse 11. It says, "And Jonathan said to David, 'Come, let us go out into the field.' So both of them went out into the field. Then Jonathan said to David, 'The Lord God of Israel is witness. When I have sounded out my father sometime tomorrow or the third day, and indeed there is good toward David, and I do not send to you and tell you, may the Lord do so, and much more to Jonathan. But if it pleases my father to do you evil, then I will report it to you and send you away, that you may go in safety.'" So there again, we see they're trying to devise up a plan, right? To find out what Jonathan's father, Saul's, intentions were towards David. Okay. I know it's talked about a yearly sacrifice. That yearly sacrifice that David was talking about says apparently David's family held an annual family reunion that coincided with one of the monthly new moons celebrations. You know, just like people today, some of them, they have a family reunion. They get together every year, and they come from all different walks of life, from different areas, to get together to celebrate being a family and stuff. So this is probably more or less is what they were talking about. David was talking about. It said the new moon would have been the first day of the month, referred to as the new moon, was celebrated with a sacrificial meal and served both a religious and a civil festival moment. Okay. When it talks about being hiding in the field, David hid from Saul in a secret place. So they had this place, a secret place that they would go so they could talk, and no one would overhear them, so they could talk earnestly together without anybody reading anything into their conversations. Because, you know, is that a little bit like today? Have you ever been talking to somebody and then like a couple hours later, the rest of half the community knows it, or half the shop knows it, or whatever? I have. And then it was nothing like what the conversation was going, you know, or what I meant by the conversation. So it happens. But these guys had a secret place that they had picked out where they could go and they could talk and be earnest with each other. So continuing on there, it says, "And the Lord be with you as he has been with my father, and you shall not only show me the kindness of the Lord while I still live, that I may not die, but you shall not cut off your kindness from my house forever. No, not when the Lord has cut off every one of the enemies of David from the face of the earth." So Jonathan made a covenant with the house of David, saying, "Let the Lord require it at the hand of David's enemies." Now Jonathan again caused David to vow because he loved him, and for he loved him as he loved his own soul. Then Jonathan said to David, tomorrow is the new moon, and you will be missed because your seat will be empty. And when you have stayed 3 days, go down quickly and come to the place where you hid on the day of the dead, the day of the deed, and remain by the stone Ezel. Then I will shoot 3 arrows to the side, as though I shot at a target. And there I will send a lad, saying, go find the arrows. If I expressively say to the lad, look, the arrows are on the side of you, get them and come, then as the Lord lives, there is safety for you and no harm. But if I say thus to the young man, look, the arrows are beyond you, go your way, for the Lord has sent you away. And as for the matter with you and I spoken of, indeed the Lord be between you and me forever. Then David hid in the field, and when the new moon had come, the king sat down to eat the feast. Now the king sat on his seat as at other times on a seat by the wall, and Jonathan arose, and Abner sat by Saul's side, but David's place was empty. Nevertheless, Saul did not say anything that day, for he thought something has happened to him. He is unclean, surely he is unclean. And it happened to the next day, the second day of the month, that David's place was empty. And Saul said to Jonathan, his son, why has the son of Jesse not come to eat, either yesterday or today? So Jonathan answered Saul. And so we'll stop right there on 28. So now what's going on?
He's questioning it.
Who's questioning it? Saul's questioning it. And they sat down to eat, and again, just like Jonathan and David had talked about, David's hiding. He's hiding out in the field and everything in their secret place. And so Saul didn't say anything the first day because he thought, he might be unclean, right? So when it talks about being unclean, what is he talking about?
Not dressed for formal dinner or whatever it was they were having, or
Well, it says, at first Saul did not question David's absence at the feast, assuming that he was ritually unclean and thus would not participate in the meal. Right.
Yeah, he may either killed somebody.
Something wrong.
Right.
done something wrong.
Committed some act
Yeah.
that God demanded or commanded that they abstain outside the city.
Right. And be
Yeah.
clean before they could
Mhm.
Back in.
participate
Yeah.
in something
And
of
they
that
were to
nature.
bathe and
Right.
do all that and stay out a day and purify themselves.
That's correct.
Right. So again, so Jonathan and David, they talked about what the plan was, right? Jonathan was supposed to come and shoot some arrows towards this rock, right? And if it went to the left side of the rock, if he told the lad, hey, the arrows are over there on to your left side, then it was safe for David to come out and everything was fine. Then King Saul was not trying to harm him. Everything was good to go. And he was still find favor in his father's eyes due to the fact that they had said that he went home to do a family event. But he told the lad, if he tells the lad if the arrows went further beyond him, then he needed to leave because he was in harm's way, and God had sent him away, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we're going to continue on there on 28. It says, so Jonathan answered Saul, David earnestly asked permission of me to go to Bethlehem, and he said, please let me go, for our family has a sacrifice in the city, and my brother has commanded me to be there. And now, if I have found favor in your eyes, please let me get away and see my brothers. Therefore, he has not come to the king's table. So Saul asked the question, why, right? He asked the question, why, and Jonathan gave him a straightforward answer. Okay, what do you think Saul's reactions are going to be? Anybody know?
Don't know.
I don't know.
Anger.
Outrage.
Outrage. He was upset. Boy, I'm telling you right now.
There.
So there in 30 it says,
Huh?
Then Saul's anger was aroused against Jonathan, and he said to him, You son of a perverse, rebellious woman, do I not know that you have chosen the son of Jesse to your own shame and to the shame of your mother's nakedness? For as long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, you shall not be established, nor your kingdom. Now therefore send and bring him to me, for he shall surely die. Wow. Not,
That about did it.
that's not the answer or not the reaction that Jonathan thought he was going to get, was it?
No.
No, absolutely not.
David tried to tell him.
Yep, David tried to warn Jonathan that there was something going on and that he was in harm's way. He told Jonathan what? That I was yet but one step away from death. Right? And so now this just proves it, right? It just proves it. So it said, and Jonathan, and so look at what Saul said to Jonathan as well. What did he do? He brought the mother's character into play too, didn't he? He said, you ain't like me. You know, you're like your mom, right? Okay. So he says that David would surely die. Okay, so Jonathan answered Saul, his father, and said to him, why should he be killed? What has he done? Then Saul cast a spear at him to kill him, by which Jonathan knew that it was determined by his father to kill David. So what just happened, guys?
In this
So they're
case-
eating, and then the King Saul asks, hey, where's David? He wasn't here yesterday, and he's not here today. So he's directly asking his son, hey, you know him best. Where's he at, right? So Jonathan answers him and says that, he got called away to go to a family reunion type sacrifice that they do every year. I said he could go. That's why he's not sitting at your table this morning. And then what happens? Saul blows up and all angry and mad and everything, and does what?
Throws the spear at him.
Throws a spear at his own son, right?
Mhm.
Yeah, to do
This
what?
is
To kill him.
To kill
This is
him.
the son also where he was touched by the unclean spirit at the time where he had thrown the javelin at
But he just
David.
threw the spear at him because he thought he needed
No,
things
I was just bringing a point across to the reference back to last
Yeah,
week.
yeah.
So
Absolutely.
this is exactly the same thing David's trying to warn him about.
Okay, and so, exactly, and David tried to warn him about that. So Jonathan arose from the table in fierce anger and ate no food the second day of the month, for he was grieved for David because his father had treated him shamefully. So, as we look at that, we see that what? Not only did Saul try to kill David, but now King Saul tried to kill his own son, Jonathan, because Jonathan loved Saul as himself. And
Love David is.
David as self, right? So,
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure up to that point he may have loved his father, but I'm not sure after that point.
At that point, prior.
absolutely. After that point, it's
Over his life,
Yeah.
I would think at that point.
So let me read a little bit down here. It says where it talks about a son of a perverse, rebellious woman. It says with a vile epithet, Saul was cursing Jonathan, not Jonathan's mother, for having sided with David in his own shame and the shame of the mother who birthed him. It says, that in verse, let's see, that's verse 32, no, it's 31. It says, for as long as the son of Jesse lives on this earth, you shall not be established, nor your kingdom. So what is he telling Jonathan there?
That David's going to take the kingdom.
That's right. And Jonathan's not, usually a king does what? Passes it down to what? To his son.
Yeah.
But in this instance, not only is Saul saying, hey, I'm not no longer going to be king, but you're not going to be king either. So it's not, it's going to be David's kingdom. And he's trying to say, hey, don't you see that? But do you think Jonathan already knew that God's plan was to have David as king of Israel?
Yeah.
I think
Yeah,
so
that makes sense.
too. I think so too. Verse, let's see. What verse were we there on? 32. And I said, and Jonathan said to Saul, his father, why should he be killed? What has he done to you? So Jonathan is trying to get some answers here, right? He's trying to get some answers. So then Saul cast a spear at him to kill him, by which Jonathan knew that it was determined by his father to kill David. At that point, he knew, hey, what David was saying is absolutely true, verse 35, and it says, and so it was in the morning that Jonathan went out into the field at the time appointed with David, and a little lad was with him. Then he said to his lad, now run, find the arrows which I shoot. As the lad ran, he shot an arrow beyond him. Then the lad had come to the place where the arrow was, which Jonathan had shot. Jonathan cried out after the lad and said, is not the arrow beyond you? And Jonathan cried out after the lad, make haste, hurry, do not delay. So Jonathan's lad gathered up the arrows and came back to his master. But the lad did not know anything. Only Jonathan and David knew of the matter. Then Jonathan gave his weapons to his lad and said to him, go, carry them to the city. As soon as the lad had gone, David arose from a place toward the south, fell on his face to the ground, and bowed 3 times. And they kissed one another, and they wept together. But David more so. Then Jonathan said to David, go in peace, since we have both sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, may the Lord be between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. So he arose and departed, and Jonathan went into the city. So, and yeah, before you ask, Brother Rick, they kissed, but it was a kiss on the cheek, a sign of respect to each other.
And even Saul made it sound like you chose him.
Yeah, and that,
Made
yeah.
it sound like he was.
And that is still, believe it or not, that's still a custom to this day over there in that area, to a sign of respect, to kiss each other on the cheek. But anyway, yes. What were you saying, Frank? What were you just saying about Saul?
I said even Saul said that you chose David
Yeah, yeah,
over me,
yes.
basically.
Yes, absolutely. Now, what was it talking about where said that David came out of his hiding place and he bowed 3 times with his face to the ground? What does that mean?
That's a sign of extreme respect.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It says in my concordance, it says, David's bowing down more than once acknowledged Jonathan as the prince and expressed humble affection for him. So he acknowledged that Jonathan was the prince, and that he had a lot of respect for him and love and admiration for him. So, let's see, it says on the part where it talks about on 20 verse 42, it says, then Jonathan said to David, go in peace, since we both have sworn in the name of the Lord, saying, may the Lord be between you and me, and between your descendants and my descendants forever. So he arose and departed, and Jonathan then went into the city. Okay, the city that they're talking about here, it says Gibeah, the home of Saul, from his point until Saul's death. David was an outcast from the royal court area, the royal court. So, pretty good chapter, right? A very well devised plan. A very well devised plan by both Jonathan and David to find out some answers, some crucial answers that needed to be answered for David's sake, and the loyalty between the two because father and son usually is pretty tight. You know, father and son are usually pretty tight, but the loyalty between those two was great. Of course, you know, God had something to do with that. You know, and so God's plan is a lot better than our plan. But chapter 20, we're going to be starting on chapter 21 next. We're going to be skipping next Sunday because next Sunday is going to be a little bit different due to the fact that we have our Christmas holidays coming up, and I want to get into something else. But we will return back in January. Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
He's preparing.
Only part of
Absolutely.
the op order they left out
That's
was
that's a good sign.
What's that? The only op order what?
only part of the op order they left out was weather.
Yeah, absolutely. and of course, I know in the Marine Corps we don't care about weather. Rain, shine, sleet or snow, we're gonna be there.
Well, it's nice to know.
Yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. They figured that you could gather that information on your own on the fly. Yeah. Anybody got anything that we want to discuss about 1 Samuel chapter 20? It's a very well devised plan. Again, what I said, you know, between the two, you know, to find out what Saul's intentions were. And I got to tell you, I really do. I believe that David and Jonathan were really grieved about the decision that Saul had made, because both of them loved him. You know.
Is that same thing David told Jonathan is the same thing his father was trying to do that he did to him in the first place to try to do in the dinner table.
That's right. Yeah.
Well,
So.
either Saul was a bad spear thrower, or God was guiding that spear.
Yes.
Exactly right.
Well, it said that Saul was a warrior too. I mean, he was,
Yeah.
you know, so had to have some kind of accuracy. But I think God had a lot of plans.
Good, we're not letting them boys fast.
Yeah, absolutely.
He must have played for the Cowboys.
Yeah, really.
Absolutely. Anybody else before we close? No, Brother Billy, will you close us, please?
Dear Lord, thank you for bringing us here today to church, Lord, to your house. Dear Lord, as we go our different ways into this in the sanctuary where we learn by your teacher, be with the teacher as he teaches us the word. Be with our song leader first as well, along with the teacher as well, that they may give us the word in the singing that you give to us, Lord. That when you pronounce your name, Lord, and let people know that you are God. Dear Lord, as we go into this class to go to Sunday church, be with us all as we go in our different ways. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you,
That
sir.
was really surprising to me Friday when I pulled up there.